Welcome to TikTok Live. Have fun interacting with your viewers in real time. Creators must be 18 or older to go live. Have you ever seen a kid doing it?
I feel like I have. So that's
Same. So maybe they pretend they're older or whatever. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, author, speaker, and podcast host. Ask me questions about relationships, mental health, narcissism, and more. And you, they're notifying viewers. Okay, the first one that shows up gets a welcome. Right there.
The white man.
996. Welcome. Welcome aboard. I almost said I was going to give away stuff, but then that would be a lot of work to give away things, right? Okay. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Tony. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I used to have this whole thing down. A certified mindful habit coach, a writer, speaker, husband, father, ultra marathon runner, and creator of the Path Back, online recovery program that is helping people become their best selves and blah, blah, blah. And then I got to the point where I didn't care anymore about saying all that stuff. And that is where we are today. So, welcome.
I should have brought more Reese's in here.
Oh. So Mackie and I are answering your questions tonight. Real live marriage and family therapist, but I am not providing therapy. I am providing a therapeutic... No, I'm just giving you advice.
Just your thoughts.
Exactly. Mackie and I host a podcast called The Mind, the Mirror, and Me, where we talk about all kinds of stuff. I got the virtual couch.
When I'm up here and you're back there, my head looks huge and yours looks tiny.
Waking up to narcissism. Wait, we do this thing. Now my head's big. I have a very large head. Like when I try to wear a hat, if I wear a fitted hat, it doesn't fit. Did you know that?
No, that's kind of...
It's crazy. It really is. Not my finest trait. I gotta be honest. So, all right. Hey, everybody. Lena, what's going on? How are you? Got the #1 gifter badge. Thank you for gifting. I never asked for the gifts, but I don't know how it works either. But are you do you know how somebody can throw a heart on your head or my head? Have you ever done that?
I've never done it to someone.
Okay, and sometimes they'll put like the mustache or a cowboy hat or anything like that. So feel free to do that. That's fun.
Boo, he's married to my mother.
Yeah, this is my daughter. Yeah, although if what you're saying is, oh my gosh, that guy looks so... There it is right there. Lena, thank you.
Yeah.
But you're probably saying, he looks so young. That's probably what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we are here to answer any of your questions about anything relationship-wise. I've got an opening topic tonight. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What do you know about the shadow self? Like, have you ever heard of that?
No,
honestly?
I actually haven't ever in my whole life.
Ever for real?
Ever.
At all?
Shadow self?
The shadow self? A famous psychologist back in the day, Carl Jung. Lena loves your lives. Thank you, Lena. We appreciate you being here. We're so excited about this. But the shadow self, Carl Jung, he coined the term. And it's a really fascinating concept because what your shadow self is it's like you're carrying around a backpack all the time and you've just got all of these parts and pieces, but the stuff that's your shadow are the things that you felt like were never acceptable when you were growing up. And
but they're in your backpack?
Yeah, like they're part of who you are, and we often stuff our shadow selves down. They're deep within us, but you still are a sum of all of your parts. So if you grew up and you weren't allowed to be angry, for example, then you might shove that down as your shadow, and then the light side of that is you might be overly accommodating or a people pleaser or that sort of thing. So you have this shadow side of you that you just you show down. Amanda, you've helped me so much. Thank you for everything. Amanda, thanks for being here. And
so nice.
So ask any questions that you have tonight. I'm just doing a little bit of a little tap dance, a little warm up with the shadow self.
Tap dance? Can you tap dance?
No, you know what's funny though? When I was a kid, I would watch, I don't even know what I'd be watching where somebody would tap dance. And so that was the one thing, because I can't dance. We talked about this the other night. There are no dancing genes in our family, right?
I never was taught because you don't know how to.
But I could do something where I would, pretend that I was tap dancing. And in my mind, I thought, I'd probably be pretty good at this if I had tap shoes.
If you had tap shoes, then you could dance?
Yeah, one time I tried rubber banding spoons on the bottom of my shoes.
I had tap shoes at one point when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think you did. You think you did do tap dance? Yeah. But so the shadow self. So let me give you an example of this. Here's what I think is interesting. So have you ever met somebody that just really bothers you, honestly?
How do you integrate your shadow self?
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that. How do you integrate? That's the great question, Lucy. Have you ever met somebody that just drives you crazy?
Yes.
Okay, so
probably more often than not.
So what if what they're displaying is something that you have tucked down deep within your... It is part of your shadow self. Something that... So let's say that you're at a meeting at work and there's a coworker and they're just interrupting and they're making a lot of comments. And you're thinking, geez, this guy needs to just chill. Something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So what the shadow self can be is that you may feel like, well, I was never told that I can just blurt out my opinion.
So I hate people because...
It's because it's a little bit of that holding up a mirror to ourselves. So it's showing you the things that you don't know or that you maybe subconsciously wish that you could do. but then you've never been given permission to do that.
Like tap dance?
No. Yes, if someone at work, even though you're an esthetician, is tap dance, then that could. So I wrote down some examples of this that I think let me tell you. So in family relationships, so imagine that you have a sibling, which you have 3 of them, who just effortlessly asks mom and I for help, and they have no problem doing it, whether it's like childcare or money or emotional support, and then you may find yourself feeling judgmental about that sibling. And I don't know if that one. No, probably not, right? But if any of you have ever felt that, so if you have a sibling that you feel like is maybe annoying, and we'll get to Lena here too. I can't express my opinions or feelings with my family without conflict. So that would be really hard,
Hannah.
Right? Hey, Hannah, you're right. So but that would be hard there, Lena, because if you feel like you can't express those feelings without conflict, then what the argument for your shadow might be is now you're going to tuck that away. And then if you are in an environment and you feel like you can't express your emotions, but other people are, then that would be where that would be part of your shadow self, because it's something that you weren't allowed to do and you're watching other people do it. And it might seem like, well, that's not fair that they can do that. Let's go romantic relationships, okay? So think about somebody who feels intense irritation if their partner expresses sadness or vulnerability. And you might think, why can't they just handle their stuff? Or you might be the one that's in a relationship and you are expressing vulnerability and the other person might be thinking, why can't you just, why don't you just take care of that yourself and not really worry about that? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I just don't.
Well, because that reaction, it often points to like your own inability to express, or to just be tough and handle things, because what you're seeing in that other person is something that you feel like is impossible for you to maybe embrace.
Yeah, I get that part.
Okay. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah, okay. Got it.
Okay. Or like if you're at a party, and I think about this, if somebody's loud or they're being the center of attention and that annoys you, is it because you feel like you feel insecure or you wish you could be the center of attention? So that's what it's talking about.
Can it also just be though that you think someone's annoying? Yes,
it can. And it has nothing to do with your shadow whatsoever.
Well, what if it's like a crappy person doing crappy things?
That's true. I mean, because and so here's when who was it? Was it Lena saying how do you integrate your shadow?
Yeah.
So when you notice that an emotional reaction seems bigger than the situation warrants, that's usually the first clue that you're dealing with a shadow trigger. Yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
So if it's something that you just think that person's annoying, then they can be annoying. You can also
just think someone's annoying.
Yeah, but that's but if you say, or you have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm being completely honest, is there a part of me that wishes I could be more like that?
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
No, I get that.
Yeah. And that's I think where you start seeing our own emotional immaturity. So if you watch somebody and they're doing something that you wish that you could do, but you're afraid to admit that, man, I wish I had that talent or that skill.
Yeah.
And when you make fun of that, then that can be what's coming from your shadow. Okay, let's get to the questions. Okay.
The goat in Jurassic Park.
Oh, goat from Jurassic Park has been here before. Welcome back, the goat in Jurassic Park, because that was a very funny name.
Thoughts on noticing patterns of emotional regression around your parents.
Yeah, that's and I wonder, the goat in Jurassic Park, if you're open to maybe sharing an age range even of because this is one that I think is really fascinating. So we're supposed to
of what they are, or what
what they are, not the parents, but great point. And I really mean that, because you're supposed to become more differentiated from your parent. And if you remember what the concept of differentiation is it means that you are starting to, as you grow older, you want to maintain a connection with others while developing your own sense of self or your autonomy. So it seems like a little bit of a paradox that I'm going to grow closer to this person, but also hold on to myself, my own sense of self. Okay. And so when you have parents that are not allowing you to become differentiated, where they aren't being curious about your experience, or when you share your experience, they do a lot of judgment or saying, I wouldn't do that if I were you, or that doesn't seem very smart to me, then they're holding you back from becoming more differentiated. And so a lot of times what your own body keeps the score, that vibe will do, is you'll start to play small, because over time it's like, why am I trying to express my hopes and my dreams with this person who is just continuing to tell me I wouldn't do that? That's not a very smart thing. Yeah.
What if they won't talk to you at all when you are your own person?
That's a them issue, Josh. That's a great question. And that's and when I say that's a them issue, I'm sounding aggressive. I kind of am a little bit, because when you are putting yourself out there, talking about how you think,
feel. If you're doing your side of it,
yeah,
then it is a them issue if they're not contributing in any positive way.
Well, and I think that's a great question, the way you frame that, because that is what differentiation is. Every opportunity when you interact with somebody is ultimately an opportunity for you to grow, you to self-confront and grow, because you might be learning in that situation that these are not people that I can feel safe opening up to, because they're not curious about my situation, and they're not interested, and maybe they're continuing to look on their phones, or they're just immediately making it about them. Then you're learning in that interaction that this is not somebody that I feel safe talking to.
Which sucks if it's your parents that are making you feel that way, but it's like they are also people, and sometimes
right. And yeah, is that okay, Daniel? I need to set better boundaries with my parents that I'm living with, and probably that is tricky. And remember too, Daniel, boundary versus ultimatum. Ultimatum is, hey, look, you guys need to hear me. You guys need to be more supportive. That's an ultimatum, and that's where if your parents, bless their hearts, are a little bit more emotionally mature, you've just given them some buttons to push. Oh, really? Well, you won't tell me, or if you're living under this roof, you need to listen to us, or there's all those kind of things. So the boundary is, if they are not being curious, or if they are not willing to listen, or if then I will not continue to share with them, or then I will spend more time outside or at my friend's house. Yeah.
Okay, can we get into Lucy's?
Yeah, Lucy.
Do you guys have an opinion on the let them theory?
Yeah, I do. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mel Robbins. I have the book in my Audible, and I have a funny story about that, but you go first. What do you think about it?
I have lots of thoughts, but
do you really? I don't know if we've talked about this.
No, I think the first time, because the most I've seen is just like clips from TikTok. Like, that's where I heard it first.
Yeah.
Like from the podcast and stuff of that and whatever. But I think overall I like it, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because there's power in just like not letting what other people are doing affect you or have an effect on you.
Yeah.
And so I think that they're like, I'm trying to think of examples that like, that's, I'm like,
we'll get to them because
because I'm like, but I do think overall it's a great thing, because it's not fair to you, to anyone, to be negatively affected by other people's actions, or, so it's like, and it's not worth the fight of, like, that's what I mean, like with an example. I'm like, if someone is doing something to you. Yeah. Yes, that's where I go with that too. It's not worth your energy to deal with that. Yeah. Would it be a good thing if you do it to your partner? See, though, that's where I think I'd say no. But maybe I feel like it depends. It depends on what we're talking about. Because if your partner's being mean to you, don't just let them. Right. That's not what it is. Yeah, like, exactly. So it's like, I feel like there's a fine line there. But, see, I can't think of an example, but I'm sure there are things within a relationship where it's okay to let them. Yeah. So, like, be their own person and do their thing and not let it affect you or your relationship. Mm-hmm. But don't let them be mean to you. That's where I kind of step in with my opinion. The first, what I think is, maybe it's funny to me, story is as a licensed marriage and family therapist and creating some content and podcasts and that sort of thing, I have found myself being emotionally immature and somewhat jealous of someone like Mel Robbins who is everywhere. But then I realized, okay, that's my immaturity. And the more that I started to listen to her content, one of the first things I learned from her that I really liked was the countdown, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, when I'd be scrolling on social media. Mm-hmm. And I would sometimes it's wild to just think, even though I'm an adult, I'm a therapist, I'm 55, I'm whatever, mm-hmm. and I just am mindlessly scrolling, and I heard her talk about the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that works for me every time. So that's brilliant. And then the let them theory, I really like it because it is a form of becoming differentiated, that's a them issue. Right. And at first I thought, okay, she's found a great way to say that's a them thing, because when I say that's a them thing, it sounds a bit passive aggressive. Yeah. There's a woman named Tabitha Brown. I love her content where she just says that's their business. Remember her? Business, yeah. And that's my business, and that's their business. Yeah. So I think I need to soften up that's a me thing. That's a you thing. But there is truth to it. That it is. Yeah, but you're right though, because I deal so much with couples, because I'm a couples therapist, and I might see 20 couples in a week, and when there is emotional abuse, physical abuse, those sort of things, the let them is something that then there are people that are
in a pretty solid one down position in a relationship, that then will hear something like that and they almost then attach to that as if then, okay, I just need to let them do their thing,
right,
even if it's impacting me,
and that's not fair, right? Which and that Lucy then said though, so I don't know if she might not like it, but let them blah blah blah, but let me react a certain way.
There you go. Oh, it does make sense.
And so Lucy. I feel like that's getting
and that's where one of my clients who I just love to death, she just devoured that book right when it came out, and then we had a session the next day, and she was asking my opinion, and I was telling her again, I don't know enough about it yet, but she was sharing that with me that it's a great concept, and she said that Mel all but says the word differentiation.
Okay.
Yeah. But then remember that one of the best parts about differentiation is I can let them, but then here comes a boundary then, if I am letting them and they are going to do something that is not healthy or good for me, then I will exit. And right. I think that toward the end of the book, I think she might say then the let me. So that's the part I don't know.
I've never read the book. I've only seen the little clips. But yeah, because it's like, let them do their
stars.
thing.
Let's talk about that, right? Yeah.
But because it's not your job to change them or make them do things differently, but that doesn't mean it's just like let them and then deal with the consequences.
Yeah. So what started saying, when I react and try to talk to my husband, he just yells more, and I'm so sorry for that too.
Yeah, that's awful.
I work a lot with the world of the emotionally immature / narcissistic traits and tendencies people, and that's incredible immaturity when somebody continues to get louder and bigger, because that's their little kid. It's a little kid there inside of them that is saying, this is the only way that I will have control, that they can't rely on their big boy words or to be able to express their emotions. Or when somebody is saying something that makes them feel bad, then what do? How do they get rid of their discomfort? They turn around and yell, or they get angry to then take that one-up position. So stars, I'm so sorry. And that's one where a healthy boundary would be, when he yells, then I leave. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that he'll respect the boundary. And that's why boundaries are so important, because it's a you thing. It's for you to take back a little bit of that power, even though it's not that you're letting him know I'm taking back power. That is something that I have to do. So I really do. I love the concept around let them, and this is where so much of real mental health work is about something works until it doesn't, or it works in the times that it does, but there are other times where you need other tools. So it's not just an all or nothing. So some people will embrace something like a let them and then just hang on to that, because it's better than not having a tool. But it's a tool to start with, and then there will be situations where it won't work. And I think that's what I love about.
That's so important to know,
right?
That it's not a
and
one size fits all situation.
Yeah, and what I like about, I love this, being able to interact with even just the community that shows up at these lives, because hopefully you'll walk away from this tonight, and if you're even curious about what is the let them theory, that it is about being differentiated. That is a them issue. That is their business. I can let them be who they are. But that doesn't mean that then I have to then manage their emotions, or that I have to play small.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's something to interact with to help yourself become better. Okay, what else do we have? Yeah.
Minnie Ryan, feel free to break up questions into multiples if you want to.
Okay.
Just saying, I want to be able to type as much as I want right now and get an answer.
Oh, I hear you, Minnie.
Or just sum it up short, and we'll try.
Yeah, we will do our best there.
Okay, John, why do I still miss my ex after 4 months and I dated them for a year? I'd say that's pretty normal. That doesn't mean anything. Like, when you're committed to a person for that long and they take up that much of your time for that long, they don't just disappear out of your mind.
They don't. And think about this too. Think of all especially during the love bombing or the honeymoon phase of the relationship, how you're already planning. I think most
planned
people,
your whole life out, basically.
Whether people want to admit it or not, I think that we're all, for the most part,
crosses your mind at least.
It does. That we're dreamers, and so
so
then we think about it. We think about good situations, and if it took a year to break up, then I'm sure that there were times that were good. There were then times that weren't so good, and now we're starting to tiptoe into the waters of the trauma bond, a little bit of that intermittent reinforcement, where the same person that gives you the punishment also provides you with the reward, and it actually acts in the area of the brain that's similar to where a drug addict does. So the person, and that's why so often when I see people in my office where they're navigating a breakup, but the person they want to go commiserate with is the person that they're breaking up with. Have you ever felt that?
Yeah, no, I know that feeling, and
that one's wild.
I told you about this in one of the last lives, the Bachelor people, where the guy was don't
get a shadow ban.
He sucked.
Okay.
And the girl went on the Call Her Daddy podcast
and
talked about it. You remember that?
Yeah.
And she brought up that point where she was like, it's so hard because the one person I want to, like, she's crying and she's hurting, and it's like the one person she wants to go talk to about it is the one that hurt her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it is that weird, like...
Absolutely.
But I definitely felt that after my somewhat traumatic relationship.
Or a very traumatic relationship.
Where it was like, that was the person I went to for nearly a year. And so then as I'm going through things after that, it was like, my first thought would be, that's who I want to talk to. And then like 2 minutes later, I'd be like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
But it does, like, you're so used to that.
They occupied so much of your mental calories, your emotional calories, that then it's going to take some time to grieve. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's Stages of Grief and Loss, it's interesting. If you go look at those up, it's actually not an evidence-based model. And that's one where, while I might not be a fan of things like the love languages, because people will weaponize those against each other, and those aren't an evidence-based model. But the Stages of Grief and Loss, the acronym is DABDA, which is a hard one to remember. But yeah, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. I like those because even again, if it's not this linear evidence-based model, know that there's going to be a lot of denial that this is not happening, and there's going to be anger. How can they do this to me? And then the bargaining is a really wild stage because that's one of the most misunderstood. The bargaining is, okay, I'll do whatever it takes to make this thing work. Mm-hmm. And then like
I'll sacrifice things.
Yeah, I'll sacrifice things. I'll lose my sense of self because when it's good, it is good, and maybe it is my fault. And I'll tell you, Mac, one of the things I think is so crazy is how many people will then try to make a situation about them, because if it's about them, they can fix it. But right?
It's like gaining back control.
Yeah. So even if
not in a malicious way.
No, exactly. Yeah. So the happy, fun version of control.
I feel like you hear control and it's automatically negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which segue.
Yeah.
Is control a real thing?
Ooh,
Will we ever have it, or is it just paradoxical?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah. So honestly, I mean, so we want, there's some things we want. We want control. We want certainty. We want to alleviate our discomfort. And what you just said there, is it paradoxical? That is one of my favorite words in mental health, because weren't we talking about this? Where if the things that were easy to do worked, then nobody would have any problems.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the paradoxical nature of mental health in general. So if I could just stop thinking things, then that'd be easy. But when I try to not think of things, don't think about the white elephant. Don't think about the white elephant wearing a green tutu. Don't think about him balancing on a ball. Don't think about him throwing things with his trunk. We all just did it. So that is the easiest paradoxical example of mental health. So what we have to do is we have to acknowledge I'm thinking it, acknowledge that I'm feeling my feelings. So if I go back to, is control a real thing? It's, why do I need control? Because, I think for the most part, control is an immature response, is a way to have things in our lives and in our relationships. I can have acceptance and I can make room for the things that I want. But if I need to control them, then I think that starts to control me, versus that's something that I'm moving toward, that I would like, that I want to embrace, that I would love to notice, to bring it along with me. But control, then all of a sudden it is controlling me.
That's tricky stuff.
Yeah, the paradoxical stuff though.
Yeah, that's deep, especially with the mental health.
Yeah, think about that a lot. Okay.
Okay, speed run for you.
Okay.
What are your favorite book recommendations for couples?
I used to always say Emotionally Focused, or Hold Me Tight, which is a Sue Johnson book for emotional. It's about emotionally focused therapy, and it is a good book. But I am slowly but surely moving over from the emotionally focused therapy model to more of a model of becoming differentiated, being a differentiation therapist. And there's a book by David Schnarch called Passionate Marriage. The unfortunate part is it's not available in audio or on Kindle. So you have to buy the actual book and read it, which is a trip.
Actual books.
Do you really?
I can't do audiobooks. Okay.
And then, but any of this stuff from Sue Johnson, I think Love Sense is her follow-up book from Hold Me Tight, and I really like that as well. Yeah, that's those are my immediate go-tos.
Okay. Going back. Lucy.
There we go, Lucy. Yeah, that's the part. You can't have Let Them Without Let Me, which I liked about the book. But I was a skeptic. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And that's what. And I was going to say something else about a book. So I'm working on a book about my emotional baseline, raising your emotional baseline right now. And I've got a book out about addiction and recovery. And there's a really fascinating thing that happens when you write a book. Trauma Bond Preach. I like who said that. But when you are writing a book, it's wild, because I always wanted to write a book, and then when I finally got a book deal and I was writing a book, I got so behind on writing it, because when you actually are starting to write it, it's odd, or it's just such a trip to think these are going to be the words, and it's almost like they're going to be locked in. Yeah. And I wanted to just go on and on and on explaining all the different variations and variables that would be in a situation. So even I know that someone like a Mel Robbins, there's going to be let them, let me, and it's hard to. I often think of when you're writing a book, you just have to make it. There's a template, and you'll never ever be able to address all the things that you want to. Even in podcasts, I mean, I've got 700 podcasts out now.
You still have so much more.
So much more, and then I just want to just keep going and going. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Are you ready to speed run?
Oh yeah.
We're getting behind.
Okay.
Okay. I feel stuck in life no matter what I do. How to start making change in my life. Little tiny things is my initial go-to thing.
Do you mind speed running like the fact that what were you like a year ago?
Horrible, the worst I've ever been in my whole life.
Mackie.
No, but I had just gotten a diagnosis for an autoimmune disease, and I had spent years not feeling like myself and feeling awful, and was at the peak of it, and everything was terrible, and my mental health was the worst it had ever been. And genuinely, what has got me to a point where I'm okay is the little tiny things. And we've joked about this on podcasts and stuff too, but like I got into Legos and like
made Lego flowers.
Yeah, watercolor, reading books, puzzles, playing my piano. Like it's all the little things that don't feel important are actually
you were going walks up in the canyon.
Important. Yeah, I would go on walks. And it's like even the dumb like taking a shower and brushing your teeth twice a day and like
thank you.
For me, like I would like it sounds dumb, but I would set a goal to do my makeup every day, even if I didn't feel like it, just because it was like self-care in a sense and made me feel better. But it's genuinely like the tiny little, not even 10% shifts. It's even smaller than that. And it's petting your dog. That's the one you always say.
I know.
But it's doing anything besides just sitting and ruminating.
That right there. And I want to come back to you in a second here because I would love for you people to hear, for those that are new here, don't know Mackie's story, go find the Mind, the Mirror, and Me podcast, or on the virtual couch. We talked about it at one point, but you've lost how much weight in the last year?
65 pounds.
65 pounds. You did an amazing job. And I mean, I think even on the podcast that I was saying, of course I knew you would do it. No, I was like worried that would be too hard to do. You meal prepped your own food, you cooked things, you were just so disciplined. And then we ran a half marathon a few months ago, and you PR'd, and that was all within a year. And a little over a year ago, just for anybody that we moved out to Arizona, you were in Utah, I was in California, but we called you one afternoon, or you called us, and you weren't doing very well. And I jumped on
the worst I'd ever been in my whole life.
I jumped on an airplane. I said, Mackie, do you want me to come get you? And you said, I don't know. No. Yeah, no, and I don't know. And
you got on an airplane?
I did. I got on an airplane a couple hours later, made it out there. You picked me up at the airport. I didn't even know if you would. I mean, I was planning on just coming back the next day if I had to.
Yeah.
And we drove through the night. Yeah. You wanted the air conditioning on, traveling through the night. It was so cold.
I couldn't breathe. I was anxious.
It was so cold. And we sang songs, and I took my ADHD medication, thank goodness. So I was like... I stayed up for a couple days. Remember you dropped me off at my work, and I still had to see like 12 clients the next day, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm fine. How are you? What a great day.
And it's like genuinely though, it's so weird to even think that that's what position I was in now, because I am okay right now.
It's incredible.
And so it's like it does get better.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little worse sometimes, but it always gets better, and it is because of the little tiny things.
Yeah.
So just don't think you're not doing anything if all you did was shower.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's all I'm getting at. Or it's like...
Well, that's what I want to say. A year later...
Those things matter.
Your life has changed.
So much.
And that you did not see that coming.
And Danielle, it just takes a little bit of courage, a little bit of time, a little bit of perseverance.
Yeah.
All very
lots
true.
of little bits of things. And then I call it my emotional baseline theory, that when you're on top of the world, your baseline of emotions is high, and everything seems pretty easy, and you're making all the decisions that come at you. When you start to feel pretty bad, your baseline of emotions drops, but all the same decisions were there. You had a salon studio, you were trying to make money, and all those decisions were there. And the lower your emotional baseline got, the harder it was to reach up and grab the tools that you needed.
Yeah.
And so then
I was backtracking so hard, and I didn't know how to fix anything, and everything was overwhelming.
Yeah. And so what Mackie's saying, and what and what we're talking about is what it means to raise your emotional baseline is self-care. Self-care is not selfish, and self-care can be everything from listening to something, thinking something, dreaming something, believing something, then starting to take action, do a little coloring, do a little watercolors, go on a walk, set a timer for an hour, and every time that timer goes off, get up and turn it off and get back down. Whatever you have to do.
Anything that's not
because you're bumping your baseline up a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is the part too where I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a marriage and family therapist, so I don't prescribe medication.
Yeah.
But medication it can help raise your emotional
bridge
baseline.
that gap a little bit.
Yeah, so it might bump you up enough to then be able to access the tools you might need of meditation, mindfulness, going on walks, reaching out to people. And that's a really difficult thing because a lot of times people, their emotional baseline is so low and they're the ones that are trying to say, should I do this? Mm-hmm. But then, and it's like, that's what was hard about when I was saying, should I come get you?
Because I was too low.
Your baseline's low, so that's really hard. Yeah, come get
me. So I was like, no, I'm fine, but I wasn't fine.
Yeah, so so just do anything to raise that emotional baseline.
Lucy said, have y'all heard of the Finch app? It's cute and starts out with small goals. I haven't, but that does sound cute and nice.
Okay, can I be honest?
What?
So I'm sitting back here and I need new glasses. I really do.
I
thought it said small goats. I'm dead serious because I'm watching Severance and they're into the section where Cooper Ferguson was on there. Oh. It says to invite him live. We should invite Cooper live.
And Kelly said hi.
Kelly, hey Kelly.
Hi Kelly.
Kelly, what's going on? Thanks for coming. Kelly's one of the OGs, which I think is so cool. Like Riddle Nerd, I've seen Riddle Nerd here. Kelly, there's people that have just been here for a long time. It's really cool. It is. Okay. What else you got? Oh, I have never meal prepped and lost 60 pounds too. Ash, way to go.
Must be nice.
I have never meal prepped and I have not lost any pounds. So I guess you put us all together and we got it all figured out.
And it was hard, but I'm happy for you.
Oh, what's the condition somebody said? Are you open to that?
Oh, Hashimoto's hypothyroidism.
Yeah.
Okay, Minnie Ryan again. How do you fight depression and anxiety being bipolar? Do I get medicated?
So honestly, and again, this is where I'm just gonna throw out.
Oh wait, first thing, everything. Don't.
That's. Pull your finger. Do you know? E.T. Is that too?
I never saw it as a kid, but I do know.
E.T.
It was very scary to me.
They use Reese's Pieces for E.T. and I've never liked Reese's Pieces, and M&Ms were anyway.
Okay. Everything we just said about all the little things, that would be my same answer initially to fighting depression and anxiety, because also when I was like 14, I was diagnosed with depression and like it was a legit very serious thing for me from that like high school time, and it was all those same little things. Like that's when I taught myself guitar and piano and got into art. Like it was those same, it's also that same, and the baseline theory also is very crucial, I think, to managing depression and anxiety. So take all that into account, but then the bipolar and
the bipolar is one that
I've
been asked before about that one, and that's one I'm not as familiar with. But I know that bipolar is one that does most likely needs some medication, and I know that there are people that if they are bipolar but they take an antidepressant that isn't really going to address it, or if they have depression and they take did I just say that same thing? Or vice versa. So
maybe
you really
don't jump into something just to maybe talk about it and think about it.
Yeah, definitely go to a doctor.
But medication is not a bad thing, and it doesn't make you weak, and it's just a helpful tool.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I like Sophia's how to.
Oh, here it is. How to deal with test anxiety.
Test anxiety is a good one. Test anxiety is one. I'll just super quick speed run on that one.
Yeah.
It really is embracing or accepting the fact that I am anxious about this test, because it goes back to that. So many people that have things like test anxiety, then just they're so worried about the test anxiety that then the test anxiety is the thing that is controlling them. Back to that. But if I accept the fact that I'm going to have test anxiety, now I can also study, and then I can acknowledge, and there's that test anxiety again. It's that concept of where when I talk about acceptance doesn't mean apathy. If you look at anxiety in general, if you are so anxious that you want to avoid all things that would cause anxiety, then the anxiety is the thing that is in control. But if I accept the fact that I'm going to be anxious, then I can also go and interact with people, and I can pet my dog, I can go out and on a run, and I can also be anxious. So you're making space or room to have all of those feelings and emotions. So you have to accept that I will be anxious. I say this one every time. I can't stand being scared at movies, but we go to scary movies because
you throw your popcorn and you cover your eyes
because my adult kids actually want to go out with me as an adult dad, and that blows my mind. But they like scary movies, so it literally every time. If I was saying, okay, I don't want to be scared, which is fair, then I would miss out on going out with my kids and their significant others, and and holding my wife's hand and eating popcorn and building a connection. So
sharing that experience.
Literally every time that I'm at a scary movie and the lights go down and I do have the popcorn and hopefully my Ritalin is kicked in at that point. But then every single time I'm like, oh, I'm not. I always say to Wendy, I'm not ready for this. I'm not. But I love being
My favorite when you actually threw the popcorn and you lifted, like you jumped out of your seat and I was next to you. Yeah. And threw your popcorn.
How about
last time we went to a movie?
Is it this side on my face? Or this side?
This side. Oh, but it's healing. Nice.
Yeah, the scar. I ran into a wall.
We were at a movie and he ran straight into a wall.
That one's pretty rough.
And was like...
I got my bell rung.
Like maybe would need stitches.
Yeah, rung. And you guys watched and you laughed.
We were dying. It was so funny.
Was it though?
It was. I find it hard to progress in a negative environment.
Oh, Lena, absolutely. And I would love to, this is where I would love to know more about that, because there's so much. Now if we go into my favorite therapy modality of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, that if you're doing things that you really just don't want to do, or you're in a place where you don't want to be, then we kind of fit that into this concept of this. Let me just give the socially compliant goal. When I'm doing something that I think I'm supposed to do, or else somebody will be disappointed in me. So if I'm in a place that is negative and I feel like, but I have to be here because, I don't know, it's my friends or that sort of thing, then I fit that into this bucket of a socially compliant goal. And if you're existing in socially compliant goals, your motivation to be there is pretty weak and ineffective because it goes against like who you want to be. And so that is a sign for you to try to get out of that. Yeah. Yeah. But I know it can be hard. Yeah.
I feel like there's almost a tie to emotional baseline in a sense, but in a shifted way. But if you're in the negative environment, like I feel like it wouldn't be your emotional baseline, but something is lower overall, and so it's harder to progress because it is all negative.
What's hard is Lena, maybe I can talk about this too. I work with enough people that feel like they are stuck, whatever it is, that wherever they are, stuck in their job, stuck in their relationship, stuck in their family. And in those situations, the fact that you're aware of it is the first step. That, okay, I'm acknowledging that this is not the place that I want to be. But then often what we do is we'll respond immaturely to that. We'll make sure that everybody knows that I'm upset or frustrated or I don't want to be here. The problem is if those are the people that they're being immature, they're not being supportive, they're not being curious about your experience, or then your shutting down is not going to cause them to go, oh my gosh, hey, tell me what's going on there, champ. So your opportunity for growth there is at first recognizing this isn't somewhere I want to be, these aren't the people I want to be around, this isn't the environment that I want to be in. And so just acknowledge that, accept that, because then what you can do is you maybe can be able to have a tiny bit of control in that environment. Whether, Viktor Frankl, the book Man's Search for Meaning, that if anybody has not read that, it's a quick read, but he was in a concentration camp. Talk about being somewhere that you have no control, and he would say that the place that he could live was within his mind, that he just had an opportunity to just create narratives, create stories, create spaces in his mind.
That's deep.
It is, and I often think that
I feel like it would normally go the opposite way, or it typically does go the opposite way. But then your mind is not your safe space.
Viktor Frankl.
Is this a book?
Yeah. Man's Search for Meaning. It's really good, man. I think it might be in our Kindle library.
I don't do Kindle.
His famous quote is, well, there's a few. He said, "The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me." And he says, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. But, okay, let me find the one.
Smart guy.
There's a bunch. In every situation, there is a moment to pause and decide how we'll react. He just was really about building space between stimulus and response was one of his most famous concepts. Because I've actually taken that and built it into my addiction recovery program. So when somebody has, in the world of like addiction, if somebody has a thought, usually it goes, there's a trigger, a thought, and an action. And so you're trying to build space. If you can address your triggers, that's ideal. So let's say that somebody gets really down or depressed, or they act out with impulsive or compulsive behaviors whenever they're by themselves, or they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. They can start to recognize that those are the triggers. So can I make sure that I'm with friends? Can I make sure that I'm fed? But if I can address that trigger, but then I'm going to have a thought, and then I'm going to do an action. And like that Viktor Frankl concept is, can I build space between thought and the action? Whether it's by doing something, going for a walk, calling a friend, doing push-ups, or whether I can now just make room for that, notice my thoughts and my emotions, my feelings. So one of the best places that you can start to raise that baseline or start to do self-care is in the way that you respond in a situation. And it doesn't mean you have to get mad at somebody or tell them what they're doing is wrong. Your response is in your mind.
That's deep to think of that as self-care, though. Like
it is, yeah. So you can be in an environment where your parents are being kind of jerks, or your spouse is like who was saying earlier, and you can then in that moment respond inside, even your mind, of this is not something that I want to be a part of. This is something I want to start to see.
You're showing yourself love by doing that.
I can start to get to try to move away from. Yeah.
That's deep.
That is.
Speed run, my guy.
Okay. Wait, you keep saying speed run.
Because we need to speed run. We're getting behind.
Okay.
Any tips to conquering inner critic?
Yeah, your inner critic, it's a great question. Your inner critic is that just constant inner monologue, inner dialogue. And this is why I talk so much about acceptance and commitment therapy, because I believe that most of our inner critic comes from the way that we talk to ourselves, the way we beat ourselves up. When we say, man, I'm so dumb, or I shouldn't have thought that, or what's wrong with me. And this is like my big soapbox I like to talk about. And this is where the typical way that we talk about, a lot of therapists or influencers or motivational speakers start from that. Your thoughts, you have your stinking thinking, your automatic negative thoughts, and then you just have to change it, and then you'll be happier. Now that can work when somebody has no idea where to start from, just think of it differently. But acceptance and commitment therapy is the most beautiful thing, because it starts with, again, you're the only version of you that's ever walked the face of the earth, Mackie, with your nature, nurture, birth order, DNA, abandonment, rejection, hopes, fears, dreams, and everything that makes you you. So you actually think and feel the way you do because you do.
And you're not broken. You're human.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so if your inner critic is saying, man, you are so dumb, you shouldn't have handled that way, it's like, okay, noted. On to the next thing. Yeah, so because it's when you're giving so much energy or power or focus to that inner critic is, you can become differentiated from yourself, from your inner critic. So when your inner critic is telling you should have known better, then it's like, okay, that's a thought. That is. Thank you.
Thanks, I guess.
And it takes time to do that, because you have so many thoughts and so many emotions and so many feelings that are happening, and try not to just say, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You're going through life literally the very first time. Very first time is you. So that is how you're thinking. That is how you're feeling. So check that out. That is all that you need to say to that. That really is, your inner critic is trying to say something to you, and think it. I appreciate you, voice inside my head. The very founder of acceptance and commitment therapy, Dr. Stephen Hayes, when he started talking about this, I loved it, because I swear, maybe I'm mixing up stories, but I swear he called his inner voice George. So he'd say, thanks, George. And in mine, it's just like, okay, thanks, brain. I appreciate you saying that, because I'm going to do a quick check-in. Actually, I don't agree that I'm, I should have known, or what's wrong with me. Nothing. And you do that over time. And here's the part that I don't know if this sounds good or bad, but over time, what it feels like to be you, your implicit memory, which is built on the very slow residue of your lived experience, the things you think and do and interact and say to yourself, that if you can start to notice and make those small changes, like we talked about earlier, then what it can feel like to be you, even on the inside, can start to really, really change. And I will be honest with you, I did not know that was even a thing until it becomes a thing. And then I don't have that inner voice that's the what's wrong with me. And I still do plenty of dumb things every day. But but I mean, even today, I looked for a remote control that would move a teleprompter 30 minutes at my office.
You have a teleprompter?
I have a teleprompter software.
Huh.
Yeah, and I have this little remote control. Still haven't found it. But the whole time, I was noticing that I was could have been frustrated. I was taking great delight in finding other things in the bottom of my backpack. And then 30 minutes later, I just said, okay, I am not going to find that remote.
Yeah.
That is happening. Check that out.
Check that out.
Really, it was okay.
You didn't yell, you didn't hit anything.
No, I didn't.
Just like,
I ate a chocolate chip muffin top, though.
Oh.
Yeah, because I did find that.
In your backpack, and you ate it?
No, I found it on the stool beside me.
Okay.
From when I bought it.
Why do the people in my life who need therapy the most don't go? It's frustrating.
It's super frustrating.
Because they have the most work to do, and it's too... it's too scary or upsetting for them to have to acknowledge that they need the help.
It is. It is interesting.
Or they're so far into it that it's like, it's just... Like when he's, I don't know. I feel like with the narcissist, if they've confabulated things so far, then they don't even think that they need help.
That's a great, I see what you're saying.
You know?
Yeah. That's actually what Mackie's saying. The confabulation thing's an amazing thing, what we do with our own memory, the stories we tell ourselves. Here I'm talking about the good version. I'm okay. I'm not broken. I'm human. But if it's the, I'm never wrong, I don't need therapy, you need therapy, now I'm projecting,
and
shadow self,
might
mirror
that is the thing.
Yeah, because if I would need therapy, so many people do the all or nothing, black or white stuff so much, where they're thinking, okay, if I need therapy, then that means that I have to admit that there are things that I might have done or that I do that people aren't happy about. And then all of a sudden, everyone is going to think that I've done that I'm bad, or there's so much all or nothing.
So it's like too overwhelming to even be a thing, so then they just don't.
It really is, huh? Okay, where do we go?
It's a lot.
Okay. Ooh. Oh! Wait, does this one fit you at all? Any
What?
ideas how to deal with an older sibling who is controlling?
Have you met my older sibling? She's the nicest person.
Okay.
I'm not saying it in a bad way. No.
She is so nice.
Have you seen her? No.
Yeah.
I have the nicest older sibling, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Did you ever relate to that?
Yeah, well, no.
Okay.
No. And I was like sitting there thinking, my older sibling and I we just didn't really talk much or anything. So I think if I'm just giving generic advice, it sounds so like generic advice, throwaway advice, whatever, but not really trying to say that. But it goes back to that concept that maybe tonight's theme of becoming differentiated, of trying to maintain a connection while holding on to your sense of self, which is going to mean boundaries. So if the older sibling is controlling, then you will most likely need to find a way to start to do things on your own. And the unfortunate part is a controlling person is typically controlling because it gives them this false sense of self, that they feel like if they are controlling someone, that then they will. Oh, there's a therapist there too. I want to talk about. Okay. Okay.
She's an.
Okay.
AMFT.
Yeah, Associate Marriage and Family Therapist. So
in
NorCal. Tessa.
Northern California.
Yeah. Okay. Here, any advice on building clientele? Send me an email, first of all, Tony@TonyOverbay.com. And where are you at in NorCal? And I like trying to help other therapists. But advice on building clientele. So okay, I would love to know your thoughts on this for real, because this is something that when I was a brand
Roseville?
new... Oh, that's where I'm in Roseville. Okay, Tessa, are you near me at all? I have an office in Rockland that I go to every other Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let's see. Okay. Okay, reach out to me.
That's crazy.
I know, that's cool. So I have an office in Rockland. I've got an office in Arizona, but I go back to Rockland every other week.
Lead Hill? Do you know where that is?
Yeah, that's where I am.
What?
No, I'm Lone Tree.
Okay. No, you're not.
I know where Lead Hill is. I used to be near Lead Hill. Yeah. Okay, now...
I guess it's not scary to say, like, I grew up in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Is that allowed? Because we don't live there anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But
here's the thing I want to throw out there, and I think this is one. I wrote for a newspaper for 10 years for free, humor column.
In Lincoln
for 10 years, and I would speak places, and I just felt like I spoke a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like it was just getting your reps in, and
yeah, like you basically just put yourself out there. So then when people did need therapy, it's like they knew of you.
Yeah.
You know, so then I feel like people just knew your name well enough at some point where if they ever had anyone say anything, they could be like, oh, well, Tony does something like that.
And then I started this podcast. I started the Virtual Couch 10 years ago now. And there's
podcast. That's
almost 500 episodes. And I think what is challenging there too, Tessa, is that the first 100 episodes I felt kind of silly. I really did. And when people
follows your podcast.
Oh, good. Okay. And so when people would say things like, "Oh, you still doing that little podcast thing?"
That little.
Oh, it used to tick me off on the inside.
Yeah.
And then, but I would go speak. I would speak everywhere, and you
powered through that of people making you feel.
And there were a couple people that would say, they told me that I was giving away my whatever, I forget, but those were people that weren't doing it. They were people that weren't doing that, you know. And now, email Tony@TonyOverbay.com. Tessa, reach out. You're gonna have to come on a podcast. That'll be fun. But at that point, though, then you were just getting in the reps and consistency, and now.
Because what is it for? Is it like word of mouth? Is that your most, or like referrals, or what?
I mean, now it's through the podcast.
I feel like for what I do, it's social media, but I feel like therapy is not as much.
Therapy, is it
still though? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, so I've got a wait list. I get a whole bunch of referrals. It's really, anyway, actually, I probably could I hope he calls. Yeah, I hope he calls her. Okay.
And Tessa said she loves the naming it thing that we were talking about.
Oh, good. Okay.
Was DBT?
I don't know enough about DBT, Sophie. That's one thing that it's dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, and it's used a lot with things like borderline personality disorder. But DBT, there's a couple of things that I just wish I knew more about, and I really don't. As a matter of fact, if there's a therapist that listens to this, oh, how's your little therapy thing? If somebody knows of a good DBT therapist, please have them reach out to me. I've never interviewed one on my podcast, and I would really like to do that. Yeah. Okay, wait. What's Lucy? I've thought about being a therapist, but I'm worried about getting too attached to clients. That's a great thought. I remember in grad school there was.
How do you keep up those boundaries?
Yeah, how do you keep up the boundaries?
I've never thought about that actually.
There was a.
For you.
I had a. One of my professors was absent, and there was a substitute that came in one night, and she literally talked about she'd adopted a couple of kids that she had worked with as a therapist. Like, that's got to be that's got to be ethical.
Like, is that allowed?
I don't think so. I mean, that's what I remember we all thought. Crazy. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really is making sure that you, I used to be in a therapist, like a bunch of us would talk about things. And now I have a couple of associates, and so you do group supervision. And so a therapist is typically going to maybe have their own therapy group, or they're going to do their own therapy, or they're going to be able to talk about things. And that's one of the best things that you can do, is to have somebody that can kind of check you, because you can care a lot about other people as well. I was just reading. I'm reading over your thing, so then I was like, you can care about stuff. Okay, let's do a couple more. Well, yeah, we'll go an hour. 10 more minutes. Okay, wait. Do you want to do this? At the virtual couch, dealing. Oh, there's so many good ones. Okay, there's one that, what does it mean when it has the little thing?
If it senses anything that might be,
okay,
not okay, it does that, and then we get to approve it.
Yeah, so there's somebody that says, what about dealing with corn?
This guy wrote a book about it.
In your marriage, and that's another one where email me at tony@tonyoverbay.com, because I'm working on an episode right now about that. I have a lot of
and you have
thoughts. I do have a book called "He's a Corn Addict, Now What?" An expert and a former addict answer your questions. I play the role of the expert, and Joshua Shea, who has a big following on TikTok as well, is he's the addict, and it's a really good book, and it's available on all the
email
things.
Him.
Yeah, do. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Emma Kate, I've come to the conclusion that my husband has a set idea of who he believes I am. That's such a great way to put that.
But it's him assuming the worst.
Yeah, and that's one where there's so much there. So when we get in...
Do you remember we talked to Emma last time?
Oh.
Do you remember? Oh,
yeah, I know Emma. Yeah, okay, I do know. Yeah, okay. With Emma, when we're in relationships, basically we are putting out a version of ourselves, and we're saying to the other person, you think this is who I am, right? And then when that person is reacting maybe differently to us, then that's that whole concept of I'm gonna self-confront and say, okay, is this who I am? But that doesn't mean that just because that person sees you a certain way that is who you are. Does that make sense? Because this one gets kind of...
If they see you that way, that doesn't automatically mean that's...
Yeah, if I walk around...
You're yourself,
yeah,
regardless of what they've decided you are in their mind. Yes.
And so what that becomes, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your relationship, that is your opportunity to decide, is there truth in how this person perceives you, or do you know who you are? And okay. I ultimately say, you do. And lately I'm throwing some numbers on it. So I want you to look at yourself as with a 90% solid, maybe 10% flexible sense of self. So you ultimately know who you are. And so when somebody says, well, I think you're somebody else. Oh, do you now? That's the 10%.
Hold on to that 90%.
Exactly. And say, okay, I'm willing to hear you, but there's a 90% chance that
I know myself.
I know myself better.
Yeah.
Because I think so often when somebody feels insecure in the relationship, they maybe are coming at it with a 30% solid, 70% flexible sense of self. And then they're asking everybody, who do you think I am? Yeah. How do you think I should do this?
What do you think about this? What do you
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we make jokes about that. Right?
Yeah.
Like remember at the restaurant last night when you said, where are you guys?
You said, in our seats.
Because I was like, oh, you'll walk into the restaurant and you will see us.
Yeah, funny. I don't have. Sometimes I get anxious and I like to know things prior.
Okay, but
Emailed my social psychology professor all your information because I was telling her how much I love you all and what you do. Oh my
gosh, you are the best. Thank you. Okay.
That's cute and nice.
I know, that really is. Okay, let's do some more. We got 7 minutes, Mackie. Where is it? Because I know you have things that you want to go do. Oh, you have a life, apparently.
Not really. I have one friend.
Okay. Oh, how about that one? Can you speak to that? Dating, okay, Carl 400. Dating somebody with past trauma, meaning being cheated on and having trust issues. This is a great question because we bring our past relationships and our past worries and fears into the current relationship.
Because it's what you know.
It's what you know.
So it is, you got to give people grace with that because it is just what you know and it's hard to just like throw that away.
But I think you need to be able to communicate about it. So let's say this is where there's another. So I do a lot in the world of narcissism and emotional immaturity. Go check out the Waking Up to Narcissism podcast, which is actually bigger than the Virtual Couch podcast. But there's another narcissism expert named Dr. Ramani, and she talked one time, and I like this. I've got my own version of this where she talked about. She called it there's a narcissist and then there's a lesser narcissist. So I kind of like to say there's somebody that's incredibly emotionally immature and they're most likely in a relationship with somebody that is also immature. That's why we find each other. And so when let's say you get out of the relationship with the really narcissistic person or the really emotionally immature, and now you get into a relationship with somebody that's like, we'll call them more normal. And now you're the one, because of what happened to you in this relationship. So now when this person says, hey, I'm going to go hang out with my friends, and all of a sudden you're like, what does that mean? Because when this person said, I'm going to go hang out with my friends, it did not mean they were hanging out with their friends.
Yeah, I feared this is me.
It is most people.
I'm learning this now. Yeah,
right? So now when they're like, hey, I'm gonna take a nap, I'll get back to you later, and you're texting, and all of a sudden they're like, I said I would like talk to you later.
Just taking a nap.
Right? And so that's the one where the reason I'm bringing that up is I think, so for Carl, and Lena, great advice there. Lots of honesty, patience, and reassurance. And I appreciate, Lena, you saying the reassurance, because I think a lot of times people will jump right to I shouldn't have to calm their anxiety, or I shouldn't have to be, that's a them issue. No, if you're in a relationship.
When you're in a committed relationship, it is part of committing to that relationship is accepting that the other person has, I don't even want to say baggage, but has had experiences.
Yeah.
And feels different than you do because they're a different person than you.
So hopefully they can say, okay, check this out.
And then you can both be curious and come together and...
There it is. There's the puzzle.
Heal, you can help each other heal and then grow stronger in your relationship.
Absolutely. So if you can have the courage, that takes courage.
So the reassurance is... should be just a thing. It shouldn't be something that you're fighting or not willing to give.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And Danielle brings up a good point that we can integrate in here. I feel like knowing yourself is hard because isn't that ever changing like life? Absolutely. Because it's the first time that you are in these situations.
And you should be changing.
Yeah.
That's good. That's growing.
It is. So when you're in the relationship and all of a sudden now when that person says, I'm going to hang out with my friends, do you have the courage to say, hey, check this out? Oh, and Lena, a good partner can be very healing. So check this out. When you say that, here's where I go. Mm-hmm. Because if that partner says, well, geez, I guess I'll never go out with my friends again.
Right.
Run. Is that too extreme?
Run.
But if they're like, oh man, tell me about that. What's that like? Carl been with her 5 years and there's still some times where she has the fear of cheating. The sometimes is the question I'd have, Carl, because that's fair. I think a lot of times when people have been hurt,
especially as somebody that has been cheated on, it does some damage.
Yeah.
Because you can be with a partner that you completely trust wholeheartedly, and that fear or that pain pops up sometimes, and it's personally for me, feeling that being with a good partner that I do trust, it's very frustrating. All I'm saying is give her some grace because it's very frustrating when those feelings come up and you can logically say, I know that my partner would not do these things.
Yeah.
But there's still this...
Thanks so, Kate.
Trauma. There's where it's a thought and it does pop in your head and then it's hard to let that thought go.
I would say, though, you've done a nice job, though, of you've had the courage to be known.
Yeah.
right?
Because it's just about communicating. And so I feel like if anything, that is like you're allowed to open up that conversation with her.
Yeah.
And do you believe that fear will ever go away, or she'll still live with it?
It's a great question. I really think there's a old proverb or that I like where it was it's where, okay, so this person comes and they go to it's like I want to say a Chinese proverb or Buddhist proverb, but where the person goes to their master and they say, okay, they pour salt in a glass of water and they have them drink of it with a straw. The water's really salty. Then they go to a lake, which this is a part that I think is kind of gross because they're going to drink out of the lake, but that's maybe my ADHD talking. But then they go back and they pour the same amount of salt in the lake, and then he says, okay, drink from a straw in there, and then you can't taste any of the salt. So it's like the salt's still in there, but you make that much room for it. So the more trust you have in the relationship over time, and the more that you're able to, and I was going to say earlier too, I use this phrase a lot in my couples therapy of testing for safety, and I think it's okay for the guy in this situation, Carl, you to know that on occasion she may still just throw out a test for safety, and
it's not that she's saying she doesn't trust you or saying she really thinks you're going to do something like that, but it is like it's that fear of abandonment and fear of getting hurt and all of that, like.
So if you are
showing up in a human who feels things,
right, and if you're solid, this is where I like, if you're solid with yourself, then if she is testing for safety, then I'm going to say, man, I appreciate you sharing that. That would be hard if you still find yourself feeling that, like,
and you can have
I'm
that
here,
conversation.
we're okay.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, and I don't know your situation. This is I did a episode on attachment. Go find it on the virtual couch a couple of weeks ago, and I talked about your attachment orientation. So we still talked about anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. But the reason I did it was because there's some new research that came out that's talking about, let's call it your attachment orientation, and that it's the way that you bring your attachment issues into the relationship, but you can change them with that awareness. But the reason I did the whole podcast was based on one line that talked about remembering that the things you're bringing into the relationship ultimately are things that you are carrying from your childhood. So I have seen situations where somebody can show up, and this is why differentiation is so beautiful. I can show up and be the very best version of myself. I can choose myself. I can stay grounded. I can not play small. I can own my own stuff. I can make changes, and that person may still not choose me. And ultimately that is a them issue. And that's hard because I've worked with a couple of people in particular lately that have shown up the very best version of themselves, and the other person is so, I think, wounded from childhood that then they still cannot be in the relationship. And a lot of times when we get into relationships, we're so codependent, we're so enmeshed because everybody's immature going into relationships. Because we don't know what we don't know. And then you go through things and you get the tools and you start to communicate more effectively, but then your partner may still not trust, or they may still have really difficult situations that they still project onto you. Or do you see where I'm going there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
It is.
Relationship. But I mean, with that, is a relationship ever easy, or is it always a fixer-upper?
I like the fixer-upper part, because at some point
it's two imperfect people coming together and trying to build a life with each other, and there is always going to be. I don't think it doesn't mean there has to be screaming and yelling and fighting and anything like that. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that things are just going to be perfect and easy.
Well, Chris, I'll catch you before we go real quick. I've seen you've said that before, yeah.
But it's not going to be perfect and easy 24/7, and there are going to be it's going to ebb and flow of all the things.
Yeah.
And that can still be normal and healthy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean just assume, if there is screaming and yelling and constant fighting, that's not normal.
No, exactly.
Or healthy.
And so imagine this, and I'm not even trying to be funny, but this is where it is so normal in a relationship to get to the point where all you talk about are the things that are easy, because the things that are difficult to talk about are so hard, and it's because we didn't learn how to we're so afraid of contention that we avoid tension in the relationship altogether. Mm-hmm. And so learning that growth comes from the discomfort, learning how to self-soothe and to show up and know that it's easier to run away from my anxiety and my fear than to confront it. But when you start to I always say you get your reps and repetitions, your practice in becoming differentiated, that you over time, again, things take a lot longer than we think, but over time, when you notice that you are wanting to have a difficult conversation rather than kicking that can down the road and saying, you know what, I'll do it later, then you know that, okay, we're going to learn more about each other through this conversation. And that's where really go find me on the virtual couch, look up my 4 pillars of a connected conversation, because I have an amazing framework where I'm assuming good intentions. That person is not trying to hurt me with the way they're showing up. But you know, it is making me uncomfortable. I can't tell them they're wrong, or I don't believe them, even if I think they're wrong or I don't believe them, because if I start going down that path, we're going to go out in the weeds and we're just going to start in tit for tat. And then I'm going to go into questions before comments. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to say, tell me more about that. What is that like for you? But I got to step out of my own ego. It's going to be really awkward. And then I'm going to stay present. I'm not going to go into a victim mindset. And anyway, there's a lot there. And I've got a marriage course update coming out soon. And leave it there. Yeah, that one, right?
Let's do that one and then.
Okay, Chris. Thanks for sticking with us, because I have severe ADHD. I have temporary paralysis from severe ADHD and anxiety. Any advice? So one of the best things I think you can do, if you've been diagnosed with ADHD, please read the book ADHD 2.0 by Hollowell and Rattay. I make jokes often and I say it's my Bible. It's an amazing book, because there are so many things about ADHD that I think we're learning more about now. It has some of the best concepts where ADHD, it's like we have a Ferrari engine and we have bicycle brakes. You know, it's that we have to find the right kind of difficult. It's understanding that what executive functioning challenges really look like. You know, there's this teeter-totter of thinking and doing. And apparently people can think about things and then not want to do something else, or do things and not think about something else. But the ADHD brain, our teeter-totter kind of broke. So when I'm thinking about something, all of a sudden I think I want to do something else. Look at that. And when I'm doing something, all of a sudden that makes me want to think about something else. And so it's accepting and learning how to deal with those wonderful challenges. When you find the right kind of difficult, then you really can thrive. And it's interesting because there's some thought where people want to call it VAST, variable attention stimulus trait, rather than an attention deficit disorder, because it's not a deficit of attention when you find the right kind of difficult. And then when you can do something until all of a sudden you don't want to do it. And that's been one of the greatest things for me personally, is I would spend 10 years in a career I hated, the computer industry. And when I found therapy, all of a sudden I get to see a client, and then another one is completely different, and then another one, and then I can write, and I can go speak, and I can do a podcast, and you're finding that right kind of difficult. And then there's so many things in that book as well, the concepts around rejection sensitivity, that those of us with ADHD, we were told no. Some believe 10 to 20,000 times more by the time we were 12 or 13 or whatever it is. Even just not just like no, but not now, buddy. Or, you know, you seem like a whole lot. And so we have anticipatory rejection. So we're sometimes going into things anticipating rejection, which can cause anxiety, which can cause a temporary paralysis. And then they have a beautiful section on connection, vitamin C, that we really do need connection with others, but it can be difficult again because of that rejection sensitivity. And ADHD, if you really have it, is one of the most efficacious. It's one of the most successfully things treated through medication. And that section alone talks about how people with undiagnosed or untreated ADHD, it's a significant portion that turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, because we are impulsive. Sometimes it's the fun kind of impulsive. Other times it's the not so fun kind. So there's a lot there that can be done. And
is your contact at Tony Overbay?
Yeah. And as a card carrying member of the ADHD club, which I didn't get my diagnosis till 9-10 years ago in my mid 40s. That's one of the biggest things where when I say I have to accept the fact that I wish I would have gotten my diagnosis sooner. So do everything you can to find out more about ADHD, and know that it can be, if you have it and you embrace it, it can be a fun time. I'm a pretty fun hang. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you're paying attention. And I feel rejection very sensitively.
You're fine.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. What a wonderful time. Mackie, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we're trying to do these every Sunday night. So if we didn't get to your question, come back.
Everybody. Oh, and if Sydney was here, she would say that she's going to put this up on YouTube in a few days. Mm-hmm. And then I put in the thing that you were on here tonight. Go follow you at Mackie
Mackie Overbay.
And follow her at Mackie Overbay. I was going to say .com, but not really. It's on the Ticking Talk. Right? Follow me. Follow you. Thanks, Mac. I'm hungry.
I'm too. I think that's why I tapped out a little bit.
You did good.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Here's the part where I awkwardly...
takes him 20 minutes to find the ending it button.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful time. I was going to say, we'll see you next time on the virtual couch. But this is not the podcast. Waking Up to Narcissism, virtual couch.
And wait, I've answered... If you're interested in talking it, just email contact@tonyoverbay.com.
Yeah. And I'll do more Q&A podcast episodes throughout the week as well. Have you even thought about, every now and again I'll get a cancellation and somebody will say, oh, I'm so sorry I can't make it, but of course I know I have to pay you, which is like the greatest client in the world. And in those situations I've thought, I should just go live and answer questions.
Yeah, you should.
I'd be all by myself.
So, keep an eye out.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Oh, I did. I got it right. There we go.
So check that out. You don't know what you don't know. It's what it's all about.